What's up, everybody? Brandon Warren here for an off-day Periscope Midwest Swing podcast in simulcast, coming at you on YouTube or on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or however else you get the podcast. If you can see me in person, you can see Oscar behind me here hanging out as well. So hopefully we can have a nice fun show. We can chit-chat about whatever you want, whether it's your 25-18 Minnesota Twins. We can talk about number one overall draft pick stuff. We were talking about that on Twitter a little bit tonight. We can talk anything you guys really want to as far as Ervin Santana being an ace or not, although I prefer not to get too deep into that tonight. We can talk being a parent. We can talk about the 25-man power rankings that I released today on zonecoverage.com. Make sure you check out everything we got at zonecoverage.com and zonecoverage.com/Amazon if you are an Amazon shopper. Amazon Prime, Amazon Pantry, all those things work. We get a little bit of a kickback and nothing changes for you as well. Go to zonecoverage.com/Amazon. Authentic Giants wants to know if passing on Hunter Green is a legitimate report. I don't know. I would guess it's connecting the dots based on some agent speak for John Heyman of FanRag Sports. I suspect he has heard numerous things from back channels, and obviously not something from the Twins, who are very, very tight to the vest with what they're going to do with the number one overall pick. I suspect that the fact that no right-handed prep pitcher has ever gone number one overall, and some of the lefties that have gone number one overall, whether it's Brady Aiken or a couple other guys, not having much success probably does have to play into the decision at least a little bit, just because, as I tweeted earlier tonight, you do have to go through probably 4 years of going through the system. You have to stay healthy besides, and in Hunter Green's case, you also have to develop a legitimate, reliable secondary pitch as well. I just don't know if that's the kind of risk that they're going to want to take to be a pioneer, in the sense that they would be making, again, that first-time pick for a prep right-hander. Quick reminder, too, you can ask questions in the Periscope chat. It is easier for me if you ask them on Twitter at Brandon_Warren. I have my tweet deck up here on the screen, so it does make it a little easier for those questions to stay up and make it easier for me to reference them as they come up. For instance, Doubles says, during Game 7 of overtime, he says, say it ain't so. I do apologize that the NHL game is going on right now. I understand that the Doc Emmerich's on the call, and it's a pretty spirited game. So I do apologize for that. But you know what? I respect people that are checking out Game 7, because obviously those don't come around that often as well. Nick Moen calling me a moron and then saying thank you for the great article today. I appreciate that. Again, I did write up my 25-man power rankings, zonecoverage.com, under the Twins tab. I think it is also the number one story on the front page right now, because we haven't had anything up since I posted that this afternoon. As you might expect, Miguel Sano, my number one player on those power rankings. Ervin Santana, number two. I think those two are pretty indisputable. Some people might want to fight with me over the order of those. I think that Miguel Sano is number one with a bullet. I think number 3, 4, 5 you can argue with. I had somebody on Twins Daily tell me that Brian Dozier should be below number 10 and that Kenny Vargas should be in the top 10. Both of those things don't make any sense to me whatsoever. So, yeah, it's kind of fun to write power rankings and see how people react. But the nice thing is nobody's called me a moron yet, in all honesty. And I haven't checked Twins Daily now for about an hour, so maybe somebody has gotten around to it. But yeah, I don't think Kenny Vargas, with 74 plate appearances, can really hold a candle to what Brian Dozier has done, especially considering Dozier has been so much better in May. And I think with power rankings, you do have to kind of give some credence to how someone has played over the last couple weeks, but then you do have to consider total body of work. Because another person said that Joe Mauer should be in the top 10, and that's like, well, I think he had like a 550 on OPS in the first month of the season, or 546. And, obviously you can't forget about that. That was a really rough first month, and to this point now, Mauer's at like a 95 or 98, 95 or 98. Where was I going with that now? I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I'm reading reading these comments, but anyway. So let's get to the questions, because if I keep doing this, I am going to lose my train of thought. I'm not as tired as I was last night. I apologize. I promised you all a Periscope last night before tonight, and then to do one tonight as well. That's dad life for you, though. Hashtag dad life. So Brandon Perman wants to know, if the Twins are buyers at the deadline, do I have any idea of prospects or players they would be willing to move? You know, it's interesting. It's going to probably depend on where... Oh, weighted run created... Yeah, thank you, Steve. Yeah, I think Mauer's at a 95 or 98 weighted runs created plus. So he's still below average for every hitter. And then he's also below average at first base, even more so, because first base is such an offensive position. Sorry, when it's a one-man show, I lose my train of thought and nobody's there to catch me. Anyway, back to Brandon's question about the buyer, if they're buyers at the deadline. Again, I do think it's a little hasty to suggest they might be buyers, in that I still don't think this is a 90-win team, which is pretty much the pace they're playing at right now. I do think 85 could be in the mix, and again, that's probably good enough to threaten for one of the wild cards. Is it good enough to get one of the wild cards? I don't know. And on the last Periscope, somebody asked me if there'd be multiple postseason teams coming out of the American League Central. I'm not convinced that's going to happen. If the Twins were buying, then I think you could think about moving Nick Gordon. You'd obviously have to get a piece of more than just a rental. I don't think you can move him because, again, you have to think about how long you're gonna want to keep Dozier in house. Polanco looks the part at short. I don't think you have to immediately pursue a shortstop upgrade. And by trading Gordon, you're basically saying you're sticking with the two guys you have. There's pretty good insurance policies in this organization as far as Angel Vielma defensively. To me, he looks like A-Ray Adrianza all grown up. Or A-Ray Adrianza looks like Angel Vielma all grown up. You could keep Eduardo Escobar around as long as you want on a probably pretty reasonable deal as a utility guy as well, who has some, I think, major league regular upside at short, at least that he's shown in the past. So I think if they wanted to move Nick Gordon and maybe some arms, whether it's Steven Gonsalves, Fernando Romero, or some of the guys lower down, it would have to be for a good fit. Some people have mentioned Garrett Cole to me. I'm not sure I see that happening, just because he's going to fetch probably more than the Twins have to offer. And I think that, then you start looking at other arms. Somebody said Sonny Gray, and I don't know. It's just, Sonny Gray is, he's got that small frame, coming off a rough year last year. I just feel like you take on a lot of downside with Sonny Gray, and I don't think it's going to be a fit there. The Authentic Giant says Cueto. I don't think that's going to be a fit either, although I do really like Johnny Cueto. I know he's struggled with some blisters lately, and his numbers have kind of fallen off a little bit as a result. But, I think it's going to be... If they're in the mix, I don't know that they're going to go with a big-time move, necessarily. I know Ivy Lisco wants to know who I think is faster, Billy Hamilton or Byron Buxton. How about you guys chime in? I personally think Billy Hamilton, not Billy Butler. Billy Butler's slower than Molasses. Billy Hamilton, I think, is a little faster than Byron Buxton. I don't know that it would be... If they ran a 40, I don't think Billy Hamilton's beating him by a full stride, but half stride or maybe even a quarter stride. But if you're in the chat and want to obviously jump in, I think Billy Hamilton is faster. Ross Brendel wants to know, what does Oscar have against the camera? Oscar's kind of a grouchy cat. Yeah, he just meowed at me. I don't know if you guys can see that. He wasn't very happy about that. Nick Moen said that Buxton's not even the fastest in his family. I think I've heard something like that, but I'm not totally sure about that. So Nick Tuttle, that home run Jose gave up to left field would have been out at target field. Also, the home run to Davis, would that have been a double off the wall? I don't know, because obviously the home run from Davis, they have a tall wall at Camden Yards as well. I think those balls, at least one of them get out at target field, if not both. They were smoked pretty good. I still have a lot of respect for what Jose Barrios has done through 3 starts against 3 pretty tough offenses. Keep in mind he was on the road against Cleveland, on the road against Baltimore. Both very good offenses in their home environments. And Colorado has traditionally not been very good on the road, but it's a really good team this year. Obviously you're contending with Carlos Gonzalez, who's struggled a little bit, but Blackman has just been incredible. Ian Desmond, now that he's healthy, is really doing a nice job. Nolan Arenado is wonderful, and they've got some other guys. I think Tony Walters behind the plate has been decent. They've got some pretty nice pieces in Colorado. I'm not sure if it's the kind of offense that's sustainable, or if some of these guys are gonna stick as good as they've been and hang with the Dodgers, or even beat out any of the secondary teams in that division. But I do think that it's a team that's maybe moving in the right direction. I do like their pitching staff a little bit. I'm a big Tyler Anderson guy, and Senzatella is all right. Yeah, Trevor Story has struggled. One of the commenters here, the Giants, Authentic Giants, says Story has struggled, not only staying healthy, but I believe he's hitting the ball among the softest contact rates as well. Tyler Chatwood, yes, Ryan Sawyer is saying he's pretty decent. Chatwood's all right. I think he's more of a ground ball guy. Senzatella is a big ground ball guy as well. And it's an interesting pitching staff. Jaron Duffy says, looking at seats in the grandstand in right field on Saturday, how frequently do home run balls get hit there? Well, who's pitching on Saturday? You have to remember that. It's Hector Santiago going tomorrow against Chris Archer. Then it's Adalberto Mejia, and is it Jake Odorizzi, I think, on Saturday. Yeah, you might catch one up there. It'd be better if you didn't have a right-handed pitcher. A left-handed pitcher going, because I think a lot of the power in the lineup for the Rays, at least in terms of like Corey Dickerson left-handed, they do have Steven Souza. Evan Longoria is struggling a bit, but they do have some thump. So I would say left field, you're more likely to get home run balls hit to you. I've had seats out there. My 1 year of season tickets at Target Field were in the left field bleachers. So kind of a fun place to sit if you're a bleacher creature like I am when you go take in games. So a whole lot of fun, which is pretty cool. All right, let's see. Steven Risotto says he's an aspiring baseball writer and broadcaster. What goes into writing articles, publishing them, and all that? Well, obviously having a good article that you have a premise for, that you can... Oh, that's Authentic Giants. Cool. Okay, so piecing that together based on your sign-in name. Okay. Yeah, so basically a good premise, something you can expand on, and you start with an idea and then you prove that idea, or start with basically you have to have a general thought that you lay out there and then prove it, and then, you don't have to necessarily have a conclusion or an ending, but just get out all the information that you have. You have to write for a specific audience. If you're writing it for Fangraphs, you're going to want to go stat heavy. If you're writing it for the average fan, you're going to want to kind of dumb it down, or at the very least explain everything you use that's a little bit more advanced, whether it's WAR or batting average on balls in play, anything more than home runs, RBIs, ERA, all that stuff. You want to explain. But yeah, know your audience. Do I like analysis pieces or game recaps? Steven asks. I like doing both, and in fact, if you check out the pre and post game stuff that I do on ZoneCoverage.com, I go analysis heavy on my recaps, and for that reason, you're going to get a 2,000 word recap on pretty much every game, but it's going to be about 2 or 3 hours after the final pitch. So I like to think it's worth waiting for. That way, I get more information. I get video. I get tweets. I get all kinds of stuff that I can put in to make sure that it's chock full of information. But you're probably not going to get it until midnight or 1 a.m., which, it still has a good shelf life until the next game, unless they're playing at noon the next day. But again, I'm trying to find ways to get more people to read it, and it's been very difficult to get traction in that respect. As far as having a platform, that's also difficult. You want to have, obviously, a site that will allow you to publish. You can start your own blog, and that's that's one way to do that. It can be hard to get traction. Sometimes you're writing for just your family and just a few other people, but that's pretty much the only way to start it. And then in that case, if you write something and want me to edit it for you or something, you can always send that along to me and I can look at it. I'm always willing to bend an ear for people who are trying to get into the game, even though I don't necessarily consider myself a person who has arrived, so to speak. I mean, I know that there are people who respect my analysis, or at least like to hear what I have to say. But I definitely don't think of myself as who I want to be or where I want to get to for my career. I have lots of work to do besides, but I'm definitely willing to help. So obviously, feel free to tweet me. DMs are always open and all that stuff. As far as broadcasting, it can be tough to find a way to get into that. The stuff that I did, I interned with a network for a while before they gave me some on-air time, and so that was difficult to break into, which was worth the work, but it was very hard. Steve Ehrman asked if I tweet out articles for everything I write, or if I tweet out every article that I write. For the most part, yeah. For the daily pitching columns that I do, just because the shelf life is so low on those, I'll usually just retweet the original tweet from the Sports Post, and I don't really feel like people care about those that much. I just write them because I get paid to do it and because I enjoy looking at pitching matchups every day. So I do try to pull back a little bit, because part of the deal, too, is if I write too many things, people just kind of tune out. And that's difficult, too, because I'm trying to work hard. But if people don't want to hear what I have to say or get sick of what I have to say, then you kind of got to pull back the reins a little bit. Schmick wants to know if I'm going to do these power rankings every couple weeks. Maybe twice per week, or when the team is on the road. Obviously, filling content gaps when the team is on the road, it can be a little more difficult because we don't travel at this point. So that's when I like to do more periscopes and more of that kind of thing, and more off the radar kind of stuff. Stephen also wondering who are some of the writers I looked up to in terms of like Verducci or Pavlovich or Rosenthal. I like Ken Rosenthal. Locally, Mike Giardino is a guy who I rely on a lot. We obviously have very distinctive, different styles, but there are a lot of things I can learn from him as far as how to, handle myself in certain situations, or at least I can lean on him and say, hey, what did you do when this came up, and what can I do in terms of how to handle myself? And he's been really good. Beyond that, I don't know. I mean, nationally, I like Kenny Rosenthal, but I guess for me, I mostly just kind of stick to my own thing, because I do want to be different than everybody else. The old Ricky Rubio, I'm not like anybody else. But I don't know. I like to lean on also the people that read me, and if they want to say, hey, can you do this differently? And if I think it's a good idea, I'll try it. And if I don't, I'll try to be nice about it when I say no. But we'll see. Let's see. All right, we got some other questions in here. Christian Delzer wants to know if the Twins start is sustainable with their rotation and bullpen. It could be, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't think the bullpen is necessarily as bad as the numbers make it look. And I tell you why. Because I do think they have the arms necessary to work tight games. Whether it's Tyler Duffy, Ryan Presley, who's really come on late, Brandon Kinsler, who looks pretty good. Actually, Taylor Rogers has come along pretty well, too. And as I wrote today in the power rankings, I was surprised to see Taylor Rogers has a lower OPS against from right-handed hitters than lefties. Now, again, small sample size, all that stuff. So I don't know that it's going to keep on going that way. But he got out, I think, was it Manny Machado and was it Jonathan? No, I can't remember. I can't remember who it was. It was two righties. It was Manny Machado and Adam Jones, I think, yesterday to help complete the sweep. They got four pitchers who I think are all fairly good relievers. Craig Breslow is all right. I don't know. Yeah, Jones, Machado, Trumbo is what Grant is saying. Yeah, so he came in and he did okay. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy, but I don't know. I think Rogers is, if he's the fourth amigo, so to speak, that's a fairly good back of the bullpen, and they do have arms they can go get in terms of guys that can help them. JT Chagua, hopefully eventually Hildenberger, Birdie, Melitakis, and that's before you consider Jake Reed. They've got some guys. Nick Turley might even be able to help them out of the bullpen. So I think they've got some options once they start kind of parting it out. I don't think Justin Haley is going to stick for the for the entire season. I just don't see that at this point. If Matt Belisle doesn't turn it around quickly, he doesn't look like he's real long for the team either. We'll see, because obviously with Belisle, he's allowed 11 of the 13 runs he's allowed this season came in 2 outings spanning 1 inning. So I don't know how you really parse that out in terms of analysis if you're in the front office and say, okay, well, maybe he was decent most of the time, but how about the rest of the time? This is a good tie-in, actually. Nick Moen wants to know, how about trading for Brad Hand, who's available for the Padres? I did think about tweeting about that today, but I just thought, it's kind of a narrow band. Brad Hand is really, really freaking good. I mean, he could be the new Glenn Perkins with, the left-handed Minnesota boy, all that stuff. Really, really good, but I don't know about dealing with AJ Preller, who is kind of a loose cannon Padres GM. Again, that's not to say that I wouldn't make a deal if it made sense. Brad Hand could definitely help this bullpen, and I don't know how much they're going to want to go outside the organization for bullpen help, or rather just stay in-house, because I don't know if Craig Breslow hangs for the entire season. I don't know if the plan is, again, I think Breslow, Belisle, Haley, Wilk, those guys could be here today, gone tomorrow, and they do have some really interesting arms behind them. To me, this bullpen could be a significant plus as soon as mid-season. Right now I think it's all right. I think they've got guys they can use, but they run the risk of wearing them out if they keep, winning games and needing to lean on Presley and all those guys late in games. So, I don't know. We'll see. Honestly, that's all I got for you guys. So thanks for checking it out. Thanks for checking out the Midwest Swing podcast and simulcast. We're going to have a ball game tomorrow night. I'll be at Target Field covering Chris Archer against Hector Santiago. Going to have some fun on the Daily Pod. I'm going to record something, I hope, with Chris Jimenez tomorrow. It's going to be a feature I want to call Catching Up with the Catcher. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Chris Jimenez, really cool guy, and so be sure to check that out. Again, you've been listening to the Midwest Swing podcast and simulcast on YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, and whatever else. Thanks for joining us, and peace.